Good morning. Welcome to Two Legacies Talk Lawyers. Two lawyers
Really?
talk legacy.
Do I have to play the theme music? Like change?
Yes, hey, we need to start a prayer.
Lord, we gonna be a chain of fools this
Is
morning.
that not a blooper or what? We are two lawyers who talk legacy. That's who we are. And today we're talking about riding to the courthouse to settle Aretha Franklin's probate estate. Finally, her probate estate has gotten settled. We'll talk about that. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning, Lisa. Good morning, everybody. Good morning.
Oh my goodness. Yes. So, what do you think about that? Miss Aretha Franklin passed away in 2018. And here it is, 5 years later, her probate estate is finally settled in a court of law after a trial between her children.
I mean, you and I both know a lot of these situations when it comes to contesting a will, there's only so many different ways that it can go. And ultimately, the judge is going to make a decision. Don't know if it's the best decision or the worst decision, but there's going to be a decision and somebody's going to be upset about it. But I think that it's just, it's a testament to the importance of estate planning. It's a testament to the importance of estate planning and communicating your intentions to your family.
Right.
It's a testament to the importance of it's not just about the documents. There's a whole process that has to happen when you organize your affairs. And if those pieces don't happen, then you end up years after you've passed away having your family fight over your intentions. And it doesn't necessarily mean that because there's a result here, that the result was what Aretha actually wanted.
Right.
So that's always, to me, the big question. Is the decedent getting their intentions satisfied? And sometimes I don't think that that's the case. It's a tough thing.
Well, Aretha Franklin was very old school. You could read about that way back when folks talked about Aretha Franklin always wanted to be paid in cash for her
Hey.
shows. And when she got her money, she put it in her purse and she walked that purse on stage with her. And she did not lose sight of her purse until, hey, I don't care what turn or what move she was doing on stage. She always had her eye on that pocketbook all the way up to the end. So Aretha was old school. Don't write me no check.
Good morning, Doug. Thank you for tuning in. Aretha was carrying that cash money.
She's about that cash. So her mindset, Sandy, we talk about mindset. Her mindset was of a different time, a different era. There's a lot of folks that don't think people should know their business. Not even lawyers.
Yeah.
I understand. I was reading something that said that she didn't really like to talk about her personal affairs and really didn't like giving her business and talking to lawyers about her business. And that's who most people would trust to talk about some of their most important affairs.
I mean, it's an interesting place to be. In dealing with the passing of my aunt and trying to go through certain things with my family, I start to realize how little we communicate our intentions and how much we fear communicating about what happens if. Because a lot of the things that we're going through over the past couple of weeks has been, missing pieces of information, lack of certainty about issues, unawareness of other issues, right? And then, in addition to dealing with the documents and the issues that come about when it comes to documents, you have to also consider the family components, right?
True.
When somebody passes away, it doesn't just affect, the person who passed.
Yes.
Their passing triggers a whole bunch of other issues and
True.
behaviors. And having a will, while important, also has some consequences, because if you have an adjustment to your will, any changes or revisions, that needs to be communicated and you need to get rid of the previous one. And in this case, it seems we were battling over um two completely different mindsets when it came to the will.
Right. And there was, needless to say, there was more than one version of a will out there. So the court decided, it's a Michigan court, made the decision to go with one of the wills that was found. It was a 4-page handwritten document. And the court considered that to be her last will and testament. And that's what they went with. It was filed, this particular will was found in a spiral notebook in Aretha Franklin's couch.
I'm done. I'm done. You know, I don't get it. I think when it comes to important documents, number one, where you place your documents matters, right? You know, I understand that we dealt with different mindsets at those times because obviously we didn't have the level of freedom that we have today. There was a lot of there were a lot of discriminatory practices. You know, artists of that time oftentimes had to take certain measures because of fear. Many times fear of the unknown, but other times fear of things that they knew could happen if they didn't protect themselves in certain ways. So hiding things, you know, you think of parents who hide, you know, parents or family members who hide money under mattresses or inside
Mm-hmm.
of a mattress. You know,
Right.
this case we were talking about cushions and you know, couch, and you know, there were a lot of tactics utilized so that people could protect their money and their assets. But unfortunately, when you have documents already in place and you now make revisions to those documents, there has to be a complete revocation, a destroying of the previous document. It has to be
Yeah.
clear, and
Yeah.
it has to be put on notice that anyone who was associated with that previous document, that that's no longer. But this case is one of those situations that kind of reminds you that, yeah, you could have a will. That doesn't necessarily mean you're in the clear when it comes to the court process.
Yeah, in the wills that I draft, it automatically revokes any prior wills and codicils which are in effect. So
Right.
my will replaces anything that was previously in effect. However, it still doesn't get rid of the issue that there could be multiple wills laying around, and someone could pick up an older will first and try to probate that particular will. So you're
Right.
absolutely right. All the old copies and documents must be destroyed immediately to
Right.
avoid this situation. Well, you know what's very interesting is that the way Aretha Franklin set up things, and it's her, this is strictly up to her what how she wants to give her property away. But do you notice how, so there's 3 sons, but the 2 sons, I guess the older 2 sons, were really pitted against each other. One will gave everything to the one son, and the other will gave everything to the other son.
That's not
So
surprising to me.
I mean,
I had a situation years ago. It was not a handwritten will, it was a fill in the blank will.
mm-hmm,
Basically, mom had filled in the blanks, and there was a blank that basically would have asked for more information, but I guess she didn't have room to add more there.
mm-hmm,
We thought, as in my side, thought that she just didn't have room because when at the beginning of the will, when it identified her children, she identified all of her children. But at the
mm-hmm,
part where she identified who was to receive from the will, she only identified one child. After testimony before the judge, we learned from one of the witnesses that it was her intention to exclude her son because she was upset with her son at that time when she drafted the second will.
mm-hmm.
And she intentionally excluded him. Unfortunately for my client, she passed away after this second will was done. And based upon the testimony of the witnesses, the fact that the notary and the 2 witnesses were on one accord, the fact that the mom had expressed information to the witnesses that she did not want to include her son, that's why she was only listing one, it was clear. Now,
Right.
imagine if we didn't have that testimony. If we didn't have that testimony, it would have left it up to the judge based upon the circumstances of, well, she had 2 children. She wrote 2 here. Maybe she didn't have room here. That's possible, right? The space
Right.
wasn't long
Right.
enough. So maybe she was thinking, okay, no big deal. You know how people
Yeah.
fill in applications, they
Yeah.
leave blanks.
Yeah.
You
That's
know, a lot of
true.
people do that.
That's true.
But in my instance, the witnesses were very clear that mom was upset with son. And the
Yes.
judge looked at my client and said the following: unfortunately, your mom left you nothing, and
That's
you're just going to have to live with that.
out in the cold.
Out in
Yep.
the cold.
Out in the
And there was
cold.
nothing we could do about it. Now, one fact would have switched that whole situation, but why leave us in that place? Having two wills. The first will should have completely been destroyed to begin with before you went and drafted a second will.
Right. Right. So in her case, there was one will. In Aretha's case, there was one will. And like you said, there were mainly two wills, one in 2010 and one in 2014. So, 4 years apart. And like you said, so that one in 2010 should have been destroyed a long time ago.
Right.
At least by the time the 2014 will was drafted, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Um, and so the 2010 will, where was that found? In an old cabinet in her suburban Detroit home, an old cabinet. That one favored her son, Ted White Jr. The other one from 2014, like we said, was in a couch where she slept. And that one gave more to the other son, Kekauf. That's his name. But a jury on Tuesday of this past week put all that to rest. Metcalf came out the victor. The jury decided the 2014 will in his favor is the right one.
Makes
And that
sense.
was the one in the couch. So the couch in the will in the couch.
I
That's
mean,
the
that's where
one.
she slept. That was her final intentions. And even if there was a previous will found, once a person drafts a second will, typically the court is going to uphold that in some way, shape, or form, whether it be if it's a judge, if it's a case that's going before the judge only, or if it's a case going before a jury. Because think about this. What is the purpose of a will? To express your intentions.
Right.
Why would I, the court, go against the intentions of the testator or the testatrix unless there's evidence presented that something wasn't either done properly, that there's testimony of some maybe fraud or misrepresentation? Maybe there's some testimony showing that, she was coerced or unduly influenced. But if it's clear that this was this person's intention, they're not usually going to go against a new will. They're going to uphold that person's intentions as best they can.
That's true. And but that does raise another issue because I believe these a handwritten will, is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah.
A handwritten will. So the legal term is holographic. Holographic will refers to a handwritten will. So if you just write out on a piece of paper, I give my house to this person and my car to my niece and all of this when I die and this, and then you sign it. That does express your intention, but that is not, at least in Florida, that's not considered a will and it's not legal. It's not a legal document that will be enforced. So in order for that handwritten note with your signature to be enforced in the state of Florida, you are going to have to sign that handwritten document in the presence of two witnesses
and a notary
generally, but you don't have to actually have a notary for the will to be valid, but just two witnesses.
Yeah.
And so if that is done, you can change a handwritten note sort of to a valid document by getting it properly signed and notarized. As Sandy said, in Florida, we do a lot of self-proving affidavits and they are totally notarized. So the thing is that be careful about that because you don't ever want to be in a situation where you do write something in your handwriting, sign it. It may be disregarded by the court if it's not properly executed or something.
Yeah, and this brings note for anybody that's watching that is in a different state, because we're in Florida. Anybody that's watching in a different state, every state has rules about what is a effective and validly prepared will. So there are rules and regulations as to what you have to have. In Florida, you just need two witnesses and your signature. If you don't do a self-proving affidavit, which is an extra step when you're doing a will, where you have the two witnesses and yourself, and the notary sign an extra document attached to your will,
Yeah.
then you're going to create a problem for yourself if you have to go through probate, because in the probate court process, they're going to need one of those witnesses to testify under oath that that will is your will, and
Yeah.
it was, they were present, you were present, the other, they're going to have to get one of the witnesses to testify, or in the alternative, have the personal representative testify that they believe it to be the last will. So
Right.
this is where we talk about comprehensive estate planning and making sure that you cover all your bases, because the less that you can create as problems after your passing, the better.
Yep.
And this is why, bringing up this Aretha situation, it should be a lesson to us all, right? I got a couple of things that I want to write about, and I write my will in 2000. Well, I may want to make a change in 2005 or 2010 or 2015, because you're supposed to update your documents according to your life circumstances. Things change. You may have children. You may have real estate. You may change assets. You may give somebody a big gift now and don't want to leave them anything after, and give something to somebody else or give to charity. It is your choice. You do not have to give to your children.
Yeah.
You don't have to leave money for your spouse.
Yeah.
Well, with the exception of certain things like 401ks, it's a little different.
Well, you can't exclude your minor children in the state of Florida, but adult children, definitely you can exclude
with real estate, like homestead property, but you can exclude anybody you want. You can leave nothing for everybody.
Well, that's true. Yes. So with regard to the homestead property is what I'm speaking of. That's exactly right. Yeah. So there are a number of different considerations that one can make about who to give things to, and you do that in a will. And so that it doesn't keep you out of probate, but it does declare to all the world who definitely is to inherit from you. And you just confuse the issue if you have 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 versions running around. And that type of thing. So you're right. We can learn from this. Aretha Franklin did not have issues with money. So when we talk about what are some of the issues that keep people from estate planning, we know that money wasn't an issue for her. She could easily hire a lawyer and get these things done. Why didn't she just do it that way? Why didn't she possibly have a trust where all of her assets are in a trust, and that truly would be hidden from the court, from the public purview in terms of looking at her life and the stories that are written after her death? A trust would have been private. So there are some things that she could have done, and I know she had access. So Sandy, to me, it comes down to the mindset. You got to have that mindset to say, look, I need to kind of maybe advance the way I think about things so that I'm up to date with the best planning. You know what I mean?
So let's shout out some people here. We got Rigo tuning in. Thank you, Rigo. We always appreciate you tuning in with us. Miss Joy Crawford. Great info, beautiful ladies. Thank you, Miss Joy. Beautiful lady.
Yes, Rigo, she is.
Rigo says, I may just have to update my will soon. Yes. I mean, we've done our documents in the past. So we need to think about what's happening in the present. If we're having children, if we buy new property, if we're getting married, if we're getting divorced, if we, adopt somebody, if we make substantial changes, we move to another state. There are reasons that you need to update your planning and make sure that you are there. Right. Stephanie points to something important. Good morning, Stephanie. I just think people never think about end of life. You are actually very right. And I've had a few situations in the last few years where end of life came and the person that passed away did not want to accept that end of life was near, even when they were right at the cusp of, I'm not going to be here. The response was, I don't want to talk about that. And I'm talking people laying in a hospital bed. I'm talking people who have chronic conditions that are terminal. I'm talking about people who know based on their age or their infirmity that they are about to be at the end. And their family is saying to them, hey, we don't have access to your accounts. We can't handle your property. We can't do this. I don't want to talk about that. Y'all will deal with that later.
Oh my God, Sandy, can I tell you, if there's anything that just makes me want to pull my rose out my hair,
girl,
it's situations like that.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like, parents know that they're about to make it difficult for their children and they don't want to cooperate with basic estate planning. You know what I mean? Sign the damn healthcare advance directives so your children can talk to the doctors and make sure you're getting the right care. And,
Yes.
it's hard to get information from hospitals these days without HIPAA releases. Why wouldn't a parent cooperate with their children who are going to be the only ones there to help them? I don't
Lisa.
get it. I'm sorry. Am I going off? Sorry.
No, you're going off to the song. Chain of Fools. That's what you're going off to. And Stephanie's like, exactly. Like this is this nonsense that we deal with in our community in particular. She said, like you said, Lisa, it's the mindset. It's a mindset of, I don't believe in this institution of preparation. I don't believe in it. And I am going to just assume. I'll give you a word that somebody told me. It was a husband and wife situation. And the husband said, the government will give it to my children. He's like, why do I have to do all of these? Because the wife set everything up. I had spoken to both of them. I prepared everything. But during the signing, he was adamant to let me know that he thought what we were doing was straight up foolishness. Straight up foolishness. He was like, why do I need to sign all this? The government's going to, make sure the kids have it. The government this, the government that. I'm like, sir, does the government provide you with health care? Does the government pay your bills? Does the government make sure that you have all of your needs met? Because last I checked, the government don't give two rats about you. And if you don't want to sign this, guess what? You don't have to. I specifically said to him, I was like, you don't have to sign anything. I could just do paperwork with your wife and you could sign nothing. But understand what you're doing by not signing. What you're doing is basically saying, I don't care about my kids. I don't care about my wife. I care more about my personal opinions and beliefs. And I am fine with leaving my wife and my children with a hot mess after I pass away, and a hot mess if I fall into the hospital and can't handle my affairs myself.
Hallelujah.
And he just smiled at me. I love my Haitians in particular. He just smiled at me. He was like, okay, miss. And he just signed the paperwork. And I was just looking at him like, I mean, you could do whatever you want, sir. I'm really not here to satisfy your personal beliefs. Right. I'm here because your wife set up all the arrangements and we spoke and we went over the documents together. Mm-hmm. And it is up to you. Absolutely. But understand what you're saying. Your big message is, I don't care about my family. And that was what made him realize. He was like, oh, okay, miss, as he kept referring to me as miss. I was like,
sometimes people need a nice little prodding along, that we can help them and put a thing or two on their mind that causes them to think about, what they're saying and get, so like I said, we're working together. I do know that there are more and more people of color in brown and Black communities that are taking advantage of estate planning tools like trust. There's a lot more folks that have trust when they pass away in the family and things like that. So it's good to see that a lot of people understand that they want to avoid probate. So I would just say that if you're thinking about these things, it means you need to sit down and talk with someone. That's why we're here, and we're here to assist you. But what we're doing here is a service right now because we just need to have conversations about these things as issues in our communities, quite honestly.
And again, we can learn lessons. We look at celebrities for all kinds of entertainment purposes, but there are so many lessons. We talked not long ago about the Jamie Foxx situation. And there are so many lessons that we can learn from these celebrity stories that we don't realize because, we look to them just for entertainment. But Jamie Foxx, Kobe Bryant, Aretha Franklin, Prince, Michael Jackson, James Brown. I mean, the list is long of lessons that you can learn from different people's estates and why certain things occurred. What was the issue with the Aretha Franklin? Trust. She didn't trust systems. She didn't trust people. She didn't trust institutions. Because if you carrying around sacks of money, that says a lot. You could have been robbed at any given time.
Baby, you gonna pay me in cash. Otherwise, you are not gonna hear this song tonight, okay?
This it's not even going under the mattress. It's going to something else. Rigo says, love the music. Well, Rigo, you are the reason that we came this darn chain of fools. That's the reason. Come on, Rigo, come through.
Aretha said, "Look, I'm not going to be dealing with these fools out here in the
You're
street
not
telling them
dealing with
all
them
my
fools.
business, so it
No.
ends up on Entertainment Tonight." Oh no.
Stephanie said, wow, the government. I hear that phrasing so much. People that are like, oh, the government will this, the government will that. They're going to get it anyway. That's the phrasing. They're going to get it anyway. So I don't have to worry about that stuff. I don't need to do that. It's too much money. And I'm like, it's too much money. Do you know that we as attorneys make way more money doing probate and guardianship than we make in estate planning?
It's true.
Because
We
we
make
get
more
way
money
more
on the
cases.
back end. We make a lot more money on the
Absolutely.
back end. When people die, I hate to say it this way, but we get paid. And that's a shame to say it that way, right? But it's really saying that if you do your estate planning right, you won't have to see us.
Do you know that
So think of it that way.
In Florida, a personal representative can be compensated up to 3% of the estate. If you have an estate, like let's say it's $100,000. Let's say your value of your estate is $100,000. Personal representative can get 3% of that. The attorney can get 3% of that. Then you're taking off also the expenses of the administration. So if they had to pay to maintain property, plane tickets for travel, hotel stays, meals, all kinds of expenses off the top. Then you go to, are there any judgments against that deceased person? IRS, child support, alimony,
medical claims,
mortgages, medical claims. That's before any beneficiary gets $1.
Right. So if there's money in the bank account, guess who gets to get at it first, right?
Everybody else but you.
That's why estate planning is important, because you can actually bypass probate court. These claims come in through probate court. If you don't have a probate estate, guess what? These claims have nothing to feed off of.
Yep.
Potentially.
Rigo says, potentially, I like that. Rigo says, the government will take it from you if you don't have your documents in order, because dead people can't get a do-over. Yeah, there ain't no get me back. There's no redo, rewind. If you're gone, you're gone. And you're not going with those expensive pieces of jewelry. You're not going with that sack of money. You're not going with that expensive car, that expensive house. You're going with nothing. You might not even go with the clothes that you want to go with, or the shoes. They might take that sucker from you and just throw you in a box. You never know.
So we're going to talk about trust. Did we say we're going to have the conversation coming up about revocable trust, Sandy?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had a little bit of conversation about it, but maybe we need to do the Kobe Bryant one. We can talk about trusts and how they work, and talk a little bit about the Kobe Bryant situation, what happened there, because that kind of skirted by because people were in, grief and mourning of what happened and the loss. But the story behind, Kobe Bryant, he did have his documents in place. He did have a trust, but there was an issue with the baby, that they didn't have the baby listed in a certain manner. Thank you, Joy, for the hearts. Definitely appreciate you. Rigo says that's why you never see a U-Haul follow a hearse at your funeral. Look, I always think about stories about, people shifting gears and adopting a minimalist lifestyle. And this is something that my cousin's been saying in recent years, like she's really getting rid of clutter and stuff, because at the end of the day, no matter what's going on with you, you're not taking these things with you. Right. And even if they do put something in your coffin, like your Bible or something that's a keepsake, who knows if it actually makes it with you? I don't know. Right. So we have to keep those things in mind. But nonetheless, guys, we have come to the close. We thank you so much for tuning in to Two Lawyers Talk Legacy, where we talk all things probate, heir property, wills and trusts, guardianship. Go ahead, Lisa.
I am so sorry. I thought I didn't want you to take us off there before I got to say something about Miss Joy Crawford. Joy Crawford she's a serial entrepreneur like we are, but this lady has produced a magazine for grandmothers 2 years in a row, a very beautiful magazine that just pays tribute to the homage of grandmothers, and it's called What My Grandkids Call Me. And so I just want to give a shout out to her, because I went to her event this past Sunday here in Fort Lauderdale, and I had an excellent time. And thank you, Joy Crawford, for what you do to promote the great legacy of grandmothers.
And Joy, can you drop that link to your resource or your website in the chat? Definitely want folks to benefit from that. I like Rigo with the U-Haul comment. Stephanie, shout out to you. Stephanie
Yes.
is also a serial entrepreneur. Stephanie, drop your links in the chat too. Stephanie has a lot of
Absolutely.
resources when it comes to real estate, and she's a
Nice.
consultant when it comes to having certain types of facilities. So Stephanie, go ahead and drop your information in the chat as
Awesome.
well.
Definitely. Because, we're all about supporting entrepreneurs. Y'all know from whence we started, right?
And we are still here,
We're still here.
talking the good word, because most of the
Yeah.
folks that listen to us, I believe, are entrepreneurs based on what I've seen so far. So
Yes.
thank you so much. Rigo talking about hitting us with that closing music. You already know, Rigo. Joy, appreciate you. And she dropped her link,
Yes.
which says facebook.com, what my grandkids call me. Facebook.com/what my grandkids call me. That's awesome. And I love Stephanie with her resources, www.superbcareinchcs.com.
Love it.
And she also has www.triobuyshousesinflorida.com. Great resources.
Right.
Please
awesome.
check them out. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please share this video. Invite some others to join us in this conversation. We're on here every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. We try to keep it as brief as we can. But thank you guys so much. And then, Rigo, we always got to cue the
music. You. We love you, Rigoberto.
Thank you, Rigo. Appreciate you. All right. You chain of fools. Woo. All right. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.